I don't know about you, but when I'm cutting out, I rarely use the layout plan. And although you can use it, of course, if you can save yourself fabric by placing your pattern pieces differently, then I would just go for it. In this case, I've put the back trousers one way and the front trouser the other way because there is no distinct pattern. It's just a little gingham, so that was perfectly all right. And then when you're cutting out, make sure that you don't cut out the dart and that you always have your fabric to the left and the pattern to the right, which makes it easier to cut out. You should be left with a piece that's big enough to cut out your waistbands, your pocket if that's what you wanted to, your pocket lining if that's what you wanted to use. In my case it was way too thick, and of course the front pocket needs to be cut on the fold. The next thing you want to do is cut out just one of the zip plackets. That's if you're doing the zip, of course. If you're not doing one, then you can leave this out. And for my pocket lining, I've actually chosen a really lightweight linen. It's so flimsy, but it's firm at the same time, like linen is. My fabric would have been way too thick for this. It's a beautiful linen, and I really like using linen for this whole collection because it is lightweight but firm at the same time. So now you need a few extras. You need your zip and you need some ruler loops, and how to do the ruler loops you will find in the bonus features. You can also use cam snaps, of course. They are a little bit easier to put in if you are an intermediate sewer, or you have been sewing only for a few months. I really wouldn't recommend doing ruler loops and all that. I would just use cam snaps. They're cheap, easy and very quick. Now we're going to start, and we're going to do our serging first to prepare all our pieces. And this is my pocket. I'm going to serge the lower edge and then the hem of the front, that's all, and the side of my back piece right to where my mitered corner starts, and then the hem. I also want to serge the pocket lining, so hop on over to your overlocker, put one piece in after the other, and you might have to pull it a little bit or lift the presser foot here to get round the corner. And here I would recommend that maybe you want to turn your knife off because it's so easy to cut into your fabric. If you don't want to do what I'm doing here, which is literally moving the fabric out of the way, then I would suggest that you just turn off the knife all the way around. Almost there. Now I'm going to do my back piece. Move it out of the way again. Wouldn't have to do that if I turned off the knife, and if you've cut really nicely, that's fine. Now we also need to iron on our interfacing. I'm using a stretch interfacing here, and that really stuck to my iron, so I would suggest that you just make it stick, then turn it over and iron it on properly. And I want the interfacing to be on the upper part of the back waistband, and because it's not the same both sides, it's really important that you check that you iron it onto the right side. Okay, so I'm going to do that as well. Just make it stick a little bit, turn it over, and then give it what for, and really leave the iron standing on that because I didn't want it to stick all to my iron. And when it's all securely on there, I'm going to continue on by just putting the right sides together and closing the top edge. I might as well. So it's done. So pop on over to your sewing machine and sew those together. We'll not be needing them for a while, but it makes good sense to do them at this point so they're done. You may have noticed that I didn't cut back my iron-on interfacing here, so there is no seam allowance standing. That's also possible. You can just iron it over the whole piece. If you want to make yourself a separate interfacing piece, then that's also okay, especially if your fabric is really thick, so you don't have too much in the seam allowances. Perfect. Now we want to cut back the seam allowance. You could alternatively just snip it. I just like to cut it back, and then I'm going to sew my seam allowance to the lining, which is called understitching, which really doesn't need any snipping in here at all, but if you would like to do that, you can. And now we're going to do some understitching. That's not in your written instructions, but I think it's really, really nice to do, and it gives you a firm edge. So move your seam allowance into the facing, and alternatively you can just iron it apart, of course, and then turn it. Everything's possible with this. So I'm just going to put it under, make sure that the seam allowance is into the facing. Sew it down. Stitch length can be 3 for that. Doesn't have to be very small, and it shouldn't be very long. And when we iron this, you will see a real difference here in how easy it is to iron it. Just roll the edges out and give it a good press. Super. And you can see here that extra stitching line, and it makes it so firm and so professional. It's a really nice way to work your waistbands.